Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Leki Sisifa. I am going to be presenting today on why posture is key for understanding shoulder bursitis. Now, some of you may have shoulder pain. Some of you may know someone and may be able to help them with the information you'll be going through today. Now, I understand posture is one of those words where eyes can glaze over. What does it mean? How does it help? And I'm going to do my best to describe that for you today with clarity. Those of you who've joined me from my previous presentations on osteoarthritis, I hope you enjoyed it. It's in a similar fashion that I'll present on shoulder and posture pain today. Okay, just a bit about myself and what qualifies me to speak to you today. I am a physiotherapist, been practicing in the field for 13 years, completely in private practice, a strong sports physio background, traveled with international rugby teams to big international events like the Commonwealth Games. Being a Pacific Islander, we tend to play rugby, even though I enjoy football and barrack for the Bulldogs. Rugby tends to take you around different places. So I got to see a lot of acute injuries, and working in private practice, see a lot of chronic disease type clients and everywhere in between. So acute to chronic conditions. And my interests are a lot into biomechanics. And I have this tagline of making healthy simple. So I'd like to present the information today that's bite-sized chunks and easy to understand. So slow me down if I talk too quickly. Okay, common posture problems. It is relatable to a lot of these common type symptoms. So posture to you may mean neck pain. It may mean headaches. To somebody else, it may be all the way down to your feet, plantar fasciitis. And what I'll be talking to you today about will be pertaining to your shoulder and neck, but it can have a downstream effect. Okay, so just be mindful that what you're learning today can also assist you with that tricky hip that you may be managing, or that weird sort of burning sensation around your bra strap region, not just the shoulder and the bursitis issues that we'll primarily be speaking about today. So if you've noticed headaches, neck pain, strange arm or burning sensations, sleep issues, stiffness, referred pain, reduced range of motion, and even sensitivity to sound and light, consider the postural problems that I'm presenting to you today. So the list can go on. Now, shoulder 101. Now, this diagram here is the most simplified version that I've managed to find on the shoulder. And all I'd like you to spend some time thinking about is that there are muscles that come in and act upon the shoulder. Now, the ropey part of the muscle is called your tendon, and that anchors onto something sturdy like your bones. And you can see in the tan color, there's all these bones in and around the shoulder. I'd like you to draw your attention to your humerus, your arm bone, your collarbone out in the front, and then this is a front to back version of your shoulder, but tucked away under here where these muscles originate is your shoulder blade. Okay, so the key structure that gets very unhappy in the shoulder is this bursa, which is this fluid-filled sac, and it occupies this space between the shoulder. And this is a key point, hint, hint. I'll come back and we'll address the anatomy of the bursa, the subacromial bursa, and where it sits, and the action of these cheeky little muscles that are running around the origin as well, around this area. Okay, just a little reminder, please, if you could pop yourself on mute, that would be helpful, thanks. Okay, now, sticking into the theme of muscles, there's a little example here if you can picture this. This is your head, this is your shoulder, and this is your upper back. Now, you have muscles which act like ropes, they're pulleys, and they come from or originate in one part of your body, typically a bone, and then it anchors into another bone. And so from that origin, it can pull to where it inserts. And there are other complementary muscles that allow the movement of this particular joint. So in your shoulder, you can see your shoulder blade, and the arm elevates, it moves from the action of these complementary muscles. Now, you don't have to worry about the muscles. All I'm trying to demonstrate here is that these muscles work together to move your body. Now, in the shoulder, the pulley system of this muscle supraspinatus is a key muscle, which I'll return to. But just note the shoulder is a powerful pulley system. Okay, so we've discussed the shoulder and we've introduced shoulder 101. I'd like to introduce posture 101. And this is the way that I frame it up in the clinic every day. Now, you're looking from back to front now of the spine. And you can see here your skull is, we all have big, heavy heads. Okay, it weighs really heavy like a bowling ball, 5 to 10 kilos. It's pretty heavy. And if you can see, you have your spine in the middle here, and then you've got your shoulder blades on either side of the spine. Now, around these bony anchor points are a heap of muscles. Now, what you don't see in this model are the big rotator cuff muscles. So you have these big group of muscles that come from the shoulder blade, and they attach directly into your shoulder on both sides. And those rotator cuff muscles, they move your arms. They do the heavy lifting, pushing, pulling. These muscles between your shoulder blade, from the shoulder blade into your spine, and from the top of the shoulder blade into the neck and head, I would position them as your postural muscles. And what's their primary role? Is to hold this bowling ball head up against gravity all day. Now, this is a very key point. Your posture muscles fundamentally are trying to hold your spine and head upright against gravity all day. Now, the makeup of these muscles are very different compared to rotator cuff muscles. Now, if you can imagine yourself holding a bowling ball up above your head with your arm, you will probably fatigue within 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, you'll max out very quickly. Versus your postural muscles, which do these tasks day in, day out without complaining, in lugging your bowling ball head. We all have big, heavy heads, or at least I do. And, you know, the head is very, very heavy, as I'm suggesting. So if there is a mismatch, which is why we develop posture pain, which is why it's such a generic blanket term, because, yes, as you can see, you can have pain around the bra strap level. You can have pain at the base of your neck. You can have weird shoulder pains. You can have this stiffness issue. You can have tight muscles, knots. So I just wanted to introduce these foundation principles to you so you can see the difference, because I'll circle back and reintroduce the shoulder to this overarching picture about posture. Okay, so guys, it would be helpful, please, if you could just place yourself on mute. Thank you very much. Okay, so enter the posture puzzle. Now you can see here this fine specimen on the left, nice and upright. You can see anatomically the ears sit directly over the center of mass, which is a fancy way of the head position, neck position. Everything looks really nicely aligned. Whereas this fella over here, you can see things just look really wonky, and then there's compensatory patterns downstream. Don't worry too much about all this stuff. I'm just trying to paint this picture of, as soon as we need to lug our bowling ball heads up against gravity, and then things start to go a bit pear-shaped, you get compensatory movement patterns. But you can see why you'd probably have a stiff neck, why you have knots in your upper traps, why you get this weird burning pain around your bra strap level or your mid-back, and why potentially you're developing bursitis in the shoulder. That's how I'm making the link between posture and the shoulder. Okay, so I'm just going to circle back, and remember, in shoulder 101, I'm suggesting there's some simple anatomy: bones, muscles, the anchor point, your tendons, and then there's your bursa, which sits around in here. Okay, now here's where you start to get problematic. I want you to think about your humerus bone, your arm bone, is the floor. Okay, if we're presenting this metaphor of a house where there's a floor and a ceiling, in your shoulder, in the space of your shoulder, the floor is your humeral head, okay? The ceiling is your acromion, your collarbone. And there is ample space for things to run in this floor and ceiling, okay? Like your bursa, and like this, one of these key rotator cuff muscles, your supraspinatus muscle. Now, here's the problem. If you think about this muscle as a rope, and the rope is gliding over a bony prominence, like I think of a cliff face, and imagine a rope rubbing against a sharp, jagged cliff face. It's not too fun. It'll probably start sort of rubbing and fraying and start like bowstringing a little bit. So by design, there's a cushion or your bursa, and that subacromial bursa cushions and can help just offset some of those rubbing mechanics in the shoulder. Okay, so floor and ceiling, cushion, bursa. Now, what happens, and this is the big hint, how posture plays into your shoulder anatomy. What happens is if the floor and the ceiling starts to narrow, okay, that impingement is what causes the bursa to get upset and for the supraspinatus to start fraying potentially, or to start become problematic. Okay, so why does the floor and the ceiling of the space within the shoulder start to impinge? And if you are early into your shoulder pain and you got an ultrasound for the shoulder, the sonographer or the doctor may have said, oh, it doesn't look too bad. Your bursa is bunching. Okay, these are early signs that there's a postural issue, reducing the space in the shoulder, causing the bursa to be upset. Okay, there's other issues that may be developing, like within this joint of the space, there might be osteoarthritic changes. That's fair. There could be a focal muscle tear. That's fair. But 80% of the time in my clinical practice, 80% of it is postural related. So you develop postural symptoms, then you carry on with your life doing what you do. Then over time, your poor shoulder just gets fed up and it starts to give you trouble with your bursa and your muscle. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So I kind of jumped the gun there a little bit. The equation here is poor posture plus the space getting less and less available, which is impingement. So poor posture plus shoulder impingement equals unhappiness. Okay, so poor posture or posture, what does it mean? Now, not to labor this fact too much here, if we were to draw a straight line, so from north to south, you'd like to just see the majority of your body line up into this, say, meridian point. Okay, so if we're looking at this fella in the middle, great, everything's nice and balanced. A good cue we tend to use is imagine you're wearing a crown and you're not allowing the crown to slip off your head. So you're staying nice and tall. You know, if you're slightly sort of crooked somewhere, you'd have to readjust elsewhere. But if you're nice and aligned, you look balanced. Now, there's certain terms you may have heard of, like sway back, where you're arching back from your belt line. It would tell us that you would compensate by developing rounded shoulders, like forward sitting posture. You may have that forward chin poke. And I'll give you our key recommendation in how you can start to pull yourself back from the edge, okay, and how you can start to rehabilitate conservatively. So posture, the way that I define it here, are these key muscles that help hold you upright against gravity. Okay, now I'm going to perform a quick test on myself, and I welcome you to try this at home so you can see that I'm not making this stuff up. Now, I'm going to stand side on to you, okay, and I'm going to slump myself right over and attempt to raise my arms up. Now, my shoulders are fine, but if I am in that forward slump position, okay, and then in this position, I'm just trying to raise my arms up, I feel like there's a block. I just can't get further than, say, 160 degrees, okay, with that slumped forward position. Now, if I stand up nice and tall, shoulders back, okay, my arm just raises up effortlessly. Okay, now that's a good way, and I'd invite you to try that for yourself if you're not injured or you're not concerned about your shoulder health. Try this self-test at home to paint this picture on how your posture can affect and limit your shoulder range. Okay, just going to turn off the AC. Yeah, so let me know in the comments if you tried that and if you can see what I'm saying, where if you are stooped in that poor posture, it limits your shoulder range, and that's the link. Okay, so recommendations. Being active is a given. Now, I know in the environment we find ourselves in, being locked indoors somewhat, plus with the advancements of technology, we're a bit more anchored into our bums and seats, you know, heads in front of computers. We start to develop this forward-based posture, okay? You're nursing kids, you're loading the dishwasher, you're driving, you're on the computer. So if you're in the gym and you're not sure what you're doing, but you're training muscles, you may start to strengthen certain muscles, which will help draw your posture into this forward flex position. And look at my chin poke. Look how long my neck is, upper trap tightness, rounded shoulders. And so when we live in this position, it creates problems, which I'll touch on. That's it. And thank you for that, that comment. I appreciate that. Yes, so exercises has many benefits. Apart from muscle and bone stuff, there's internal health that we also got to be mindful of. So as a general comment, being active is a great place to start. And I'm going to dive a bit deeper into do's and don'ts, or mostly do's, on where you can start with your shoulder signs. Okay, so the many benefits of cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, glucose, your physical fitness, being active definitely helps. Okay. Alrighty, so here is the key. Thank you. Number one, revisiting the floor and ceiling. Okay, so I keep laboring this point because this is really where a lot of people get stuck. Now, my number one recommendation is if we can find a way where your shoulder is impinging, so the space, the floor and the ceiling is getting narrower and narrower, how can we open that space up conservatively, without surgery, without injections, something you can do within your own environment? All right, now, what I'd like you to consider is this little cheeky, or no, he's a big muscle. His name is latissimus dorsi. And your lats are a broad sheet of muscles. And if you look where they anchor, it's basically to the front of your arm bone, like right around here. Now, why is this important? Is if you can strengthen your lat muscles, it actually pulls the floor down. It actually helps open up the space. Now, clinically, when I'm testing people in the clinic that come in with shoulder pain, posture pain, headaches, neck pain, trigger points in their upper traps, there's usually a lot of weakness in your lats, and they generally have that poor forward sitting posture. If there was any muscle I would pick to start training and rehabilitating, and I'm not talking about doing heavy lifting exercises, nothing fancy, there's things you can do at home without equipment today to start strengthening your lats, as you've learned, to help open up the space in the shoulder, because it anchors to your bicipital groove, like just around the edge here. And if you strengthen the lat and it pulls that humeral head down, then it helps open up the space. Your bursa is happy again, and your supraspinatus can work a little bit. Your rotator cuff muscles work a lot more efficiently. So the key recommendation for my presentation today is any type of rowing movement within reason. Okay, and if the key to my presentation is strengthening your lats to help with posture and bursa pain, then you save yourself some money coming to see me in the clinic. Okay, I give this away every day for all these sorts of posture problems, and not just for upstairs. I give this a lot to low back pain, hip issues. As you saw in one of the first early slides, posture pain can pertain to lots of other problems all at the same time. Okay, now what I'd like you to consider, because it sounds great, it sounds pretty simple, but we need to be mindful that you are all at home, everyone who's watching this back, you're in different stages of your life. It's a spectrum. So if you have severe shoulder pain, you've been managing it for months and years, the advice that I'd give you would differ for someone who just fell over 2 weeks ago playing footy and, young, fit and strong, works in a manual job. So I think you've got to be mindful that this is general advice, not specific to your particular issue. But regardless of who presents into the clinic, this is the same advice that I give. Okay, I would look at reducing the aggravating factors to your shoulder, things that make you upset. The response to injury is inflammation, and that inflammatory pain plus your mechanical pain, like not being able to move the arm, gives you sharp pain, and then you get the aching pain at rest on top of that. That's 2 bushfires you're trying to manage at the same time. So if you try and just toggle down your things that make you aggravated, that is a very good start. Okay, I would also look at reducing your load. So it's not about lifting things necessarily. It may be times in sitting, as you've learned posturally. Our big bowling ball heads, they put a lot of strain on you and your shoulder. So if you can chop down and just chop and change sitting positions, aggravating positions, very helpful for your shoulder pain. I actually don't start with rotator cuff work. Now, this isn't any comment on any management you're getting right now, but as you've learned, I always start with postural work first. Because if we can work on your lat, work on some of these other scapular muscles to get you upright, you fix that forward sitting position, which that self-test showed you before. Because if you go to the shoulder first, but skip the posture, you're actually working the impingement. You make the shoulder pain worse. Okay, you make the shoulder pain worse because you're not allowing enough space for the muscle to work appropriately. And then the bursa, which is trying to cushion and reduce the anger, is only going to get angrier. And then weeks, months, years, you run out of options. You may be a candidate for things like an injection, or if it's nasty enough, surgery. So we are trying to avoid that. Okay, so I personally, professionally, start with postural correction exercises, which is a fancy way of strengthening your lats primarily. There's other muscles too, but 80% of the time it's your lats. I then build in your rotator cuff work, and there's variations of that. Then you can start to build, you have a strong foundation, then you can increase and return back to your desired activities. And, you know, obviously this is really helpful if you get specific help for your specific problem, and making sure you see your great local physio would be a great place to start. Okay, I do want to touch on cortisone injections because I'm not like bagging them. I think they have a really important role, and in the sporting population, they have a really big play. But in the general population, myself included, I think this card is played too often, to be honest. And the Australian Family Physician, which is a magazine of note, and they fly underneath the Royal College of Australian GPs, their initial management for any shoulder impingement problems like bursitis type pains is that the physiotherapy assessment and intervention is most indicated, okay, in the first instances. So if you're thinking about surgery or, you know, anything quite like secondary, if you're looking at surgery or injections, that becomes a second or third line type of intervention. The first line should always be conservative management, and physio would be a big part of that game plan. Okay, appropriate exercise, appropriate advice, and modifying the things that make you angry, your shoulder angry. And if you've tried your best, only a couple of weeks worth of rehabilitation, you can see there aren't much changes with that first line of treatment. Sure, then you have more confidence about the next line of treatment. And I've got a few case studies about this, like just quick little stories that I'll speak about, which is unfortunate because a lot of it could have been avoided. Okay, so this particular reference comes from the 2014 shoulder injuries clinical practice guidelines from our friendly doctors. Okay, now if we look at the procedure, you may have heard about a cortisone injection. Some of you may be quite experienced. Just as a quick overview, they use an ultrasound, so the same thing they use on pregnant ladies to look at babies. They use an ultrasound on the shoulder, they look at the TV, and then they can see where the particular issue may be unhappy in the shoulder, so say the bursa. They usually introduce a local anesthetic just to help numb the area, and then they introduce a cortisone or a derivative of it, which is a steroid. Now, steroid is a very powerful anti-inflammatory agent. You can take tablets, for example, for a hypersensitive asthma attack. That is also a steroid. So it helps reduce the inflammation in the airways. This helps reduce inflammation in your bursa. So bursitis, that suffix itis means inflammation. So they introduce the steroid into the inflamed bursa, and it helps settle your inflammatory symptoms. Now, here's the thing, it's very short acting. In my experience, it can help for weeks, mostly, if you're lucky, months. But the problem is it's generally a band-aid approach, because if you haven't fixed the underlying problem, which is what they recommended here, okay? David, I need you please to pause, to mute your phone, please. Thank you. If you haven't corrected your postural deficits, and you're not as, you haven't developed the rehabilitation of your posture and the way your shoulder moves, then that problem will still be waiting for you after you have the injection. So let's say you get the jab today, you get relief for weeks, if you're lucky, months, you keep going about your life because you're happy and normal. and then it just comes back, and generally comes back angrier. So first line, conservative management; second line, injections; third line, once you've investigated those first two options, potentially surgery. But no one likes to use the S word, so try those first two options as best you can. Okay, so that is my presentation today. I hope that I presented posture in a way that was a bit more tangible, because I know it's, as I said, it's one of those words that people can use and gloss over, but we don't understand what posture actually means. If you think about it in terms of just trying to keep your head and spine up against gravity, it's like an endurance runner that needs to run all day. Okay, it's like your postural muscles are your endurance runners, your rotator cuff, your arm muscles are your sprinters. And if you look at the body shape of these two types of athletes, the sprinters are big, powerful, but they work for short periods of time. Endurance runners are a bit more lean, but they can work all day. Okay, so I just came up with that. I think that's pretty good. So first line treatment is conservative physio for shoulder pain / bursitis. If you're looking at correcting movement patterns and primarily targeting your lats, your latissimus dorsi, it's a very important muscle to help decompress the shoulder, open up the space, less impingement or bursa, and a lot happier shoulder. Once you've exhausted all of your conservative measures, then you can think about other options with the help of your professionals, your doctor and specialists perhaps. But it's important to plan and develop your own goals, because wherever you are in your stage of life, your career, if you're retired, if you're a youngie, you're an oldie, doesn't really matter. We all want to live happy lives. So make sure it's crafted to your specific plan. I think jumping online and going onto a YouTube exercise plan is great, generally speaking. But if you have an injury, I think having specificity in your advice is important. Okay, so making sure you see your local physio, that'd be a really good place to start. And we can also help refer you to services if we find that physio isn't quite the right place for you right now. Now, what I want to do is I would like to just share my screen. I've got a couple of comments here. Now, give me one moment. Now, we are very active online. We have a heap of resources available. So if you go to our website, prophysioplus.com.au, you can click on blog, and we have some easy to read blogs, great pictures, a lot of condensed content across our team. And we've got a handy YouTube channel. We try and break it down to short little snippet videos. So we try our best to make healthy simple. Okay, so I guess that's the summary of my presentation today. I am open to taking questions. I've got a few comments here that I'll read, but yes, I hope you guys found that helpful today. So I'll just read the first couple of questions. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you to Ursula and Emily, who tried those self-tests of the sitting, slumped over, and then raising your arm. You can see there's a big difference. Thank you for that. M. Laricino, yes, there are specific exercises. I'll walk you through that in a moment. Good exercises. Rowing is a good exercise. Okay, so Lily, I'll come back to your question in a moment. So a common question I've got is exercises. Now, just give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me. Thumbs up? Yes, good. All right. Well, before I go through the exercise, give me an emoji if you could, please, or a thumbs up. Did you find the presentation okay? Did it make sense? Was it what was he talking about? Or did it suck? Thumbs up, clap. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Claps. Okay. Awesome.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you can see my style is just trying to keep things simple. I think we're all simple creatures in the end. All right. Now, I'm going to give you my number one exercise. Don't need any equipment, and I'd invite you guys to try this at home, okay? Now, I'm going to make sure I can see this okay. Okay, cool. So you guys wanted a basic rowing exercise. I'm going to deliver. So in sitting or standing, what I'd like you to do is if you're having your hands by your side, okay, and I'm going to ask you to try and squeeze your shoulder blades together. So squeeze and then raise your hands out the back. So squeeze, raise. And as you're doing that, okay, you should feel the work around the back of the shoulder blade. Okay, sort of under here and towards the middle of the shoulders. Okay, so palms, squeeze, and back, just like that. Okay, now to make it a little bit more challenging, if that's easy peasy, okay, turn your thumbs outward. So turn and raise your thumbs out towards the back, like that. Okay, and what you will find is it's going to work around the back of the shoulder blades, but the turning the thumbs outward, what it does is it pulls your shoulder back, gets you into this upright postural position, and then as you extend the shoulder, it really fires up these guys around the back of the shoulder blade. Now, if you have something handy like hand sanitizer or your drink bottle, or if you've got your can of baked beans, a lightweight, turn your thumb outward and just start to load up with some gentle resistance. Okay, now obviously if you have pain, if you have discomfort, stop. That's why it's important that you get specific advice. But that's generally where I start. Okay, so if you think about the forward sitting posture and then these exercises which are trying to get that scapular shoulder blade squeeze and then the arm extension, that's where I start. Thanks, Jess. Yeah, it's a great exercise and people can do this anywhere, anytime. Now, let me just double check a couple other questions. All right. Cool, no worries. Thank you for your feedback, Andrea. Lily, just with the recordings, it's on the Westgate's Health Co-op Facebook page. They published it there. And if you subscribe to our weekly email, we put replays up in there too. So it's only a weekly email. We won't send you any spam stuff. You only won't like it if you don't like listening to my monotonous voice. Okay, Ursula, put your hand around the wall, or is there a gap in the wrist? Okay, so Ursula had a question. When you put your back against the wall, is the back meant to be right against the wall, or is there supposed to be a gap at the waist? Yes, so I didn't touch too much on the curvature of your spine, but when you're looking at, say, a normal good posture, there is a normal curvature, okay? So when you do stand, say, up against the wall, your head, your upper back, your belt line, your backside, your heels are up against the wall. The small of your lower back, there should be a little bit of a space there, a lumbar lordosis. So that's a normal thing. Okay, I hope that answers your question there, Ursula. Okay, Lily asked also, what do you think of aqua aerobics as an exercise form? I think it's absolutely fine. I believe any exercise is great. I use the pain and your aching at rest as a measure of whether it's good for you or whether it may be a bit too much. Darren Sen asks, best type of pain relief while exercising lats? Yes, like I think sometimes, and this might be, I may be reading the question incorrectly. I think sometimes human nature is to get to the finish line as quickly as we can with no pain, where in reality, it is a gradual approach that we should consider. You know, because when you are looking at exercising your lat, you saw what I just demonstrated. It's pretty basic. It's low level. So I think if you are starting to load up like a heavier load, or if you're doing a challenging movement, you may not be ready for it. So just try and find the right level of programming and then be patient with yourself. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thank yous. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Lily. I appreciate that. Michael Hirschfield asked, is posture of cycling problematic to shoulder problems? Good question. Now, cycling, road cyclists are hunched over and they're trying to be aerodynamic. So they have, in the athletic population, generally no problems. In general population where you and I live, if I'm not speaking out of turn, it could be a problem. So I would say if you start with some basic conditioning work for, out the back, any type of rowing movements, any lat work, start to see what that does for your cycling efforts. Because I probably challenge you that your cycling would be a lot more comfortable for your shoulder. Okay, prove me wrong. Rightio. No worries, N. Thank you for that. Guys, I'm glad that you found the presentation helpful. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Marie. No problems. Okay, I've got a question here. So Emily asks, how can you set up a rowing system at home without a rowing machine? All right, no worries, Susie. Thank you. Tony, I see your question. You're next. Okay, so rowing machine at home. Now, I have, if you can't see, in the clinic, we've got these little therotubing, inexpensive tubes that you can order from eBay or Amazon online for like $5. You can get a whole. The colors determine the resistance. So the lighter the color, lighter the resistance. Now, if I just chop a little bit off, okay, so nothing fancy, just one of these bands. I can tie it around something like my dinner table leg, and then while I'm sitting, I can start to do, if you can see that, I can do my resisted banded work with the lacquer band, okay? And I can feel that really working around the back of my shoulder blades. So keep it simple. Simple elastic band. Don't worry about investing thousands into a rowing machine. That's not what I'm suggesting. Just start small with what you have at home and get the advice if you need it. Cool. All right. And I had a cheeky comment here from Tony. Thank you. Can you correct 75 years of poor posture? That's a big question. I know it was an innocent one. Where I would start, right, is if you look at gymnasts, when I watch the Olympic Games, I really enjoy the gymnasts because they have supreme strength, but they have awesome flexibility. Now, when we're talking about exercises, we're trying to affect change in the muscle primarily. Now, if you're an older Australian and you've been in this position where you've been a bit hunched over for a long period of time, there's something called connective tissue. It's the glue that holds everything together, things like fascia. And you may have family or friends or people that you've seen that have this really like scoliosis type problem where they're quite hunched over. Now, that is a separate problem from what we're speaking about today. I would say it's never too late, because if your pain is, say, 8 out of 10, and you start these little cheeky rubber band exercises and your pain's gone from 8 down to 6 out of 10 in terms of pain, it will give you more bandwidth and more enjoyment and happiness in your life, so that over time you can continue to do these simple exercises to go from 6 to 5. So can we undo 75 years of postural discomfort and naughtiness? I think we can definitely reduce the anger, okay? But I think the connective tissue that I'm talking about, the glue that holds us together, that takes a lot longer, because it's just the way that type of structure, that's how we're made by grand design. Okay, so it's never too late to start, and just persist. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Okay, I'll take this last question from Darren Sen. He said, is there anything you can do for pain relief, whether resting or exercises, i.e. ice packs, heat packs, and creams? Yeah, okay. So in my mind, I like making healthy simple. There's two ways of pain presenting, okay? There's mechanical pain, okay? That's pain when you do it there and then. So if I broke my leg and I'm trying to walk on my broken leg, it will give me pain straight away. So it will discourage me to keep walking on this broken leg, okay? The other pain is inflammatory pain. Now, this one is a bit more sinister, because you might be good throughout the day. You have no problems. You're doing exercises. You're doing your work. You're happy during the day. But then at rest, you get this aching discomfort at nighttime. It's usually the night pain that gets you with inflammatory pain. So if you're good during the day, functional, no problems, but then you suffer at night, I would suggest that this inflammatory pain is the thing that's knocking you over. So the reason why I bring this up is, if you have mechanical and inflammatory pain, I would suggest you're doing too much, because you're not sure, like there's so much going on, that if I was helping manage you in the clinic, I would say, look, let's get on top of what you're putting on your plate. We may have to take some things away for a little while, get that inflammatory pain to settle down. Then we get a better handle on the mechanical pain, because you're not trying to put out all these different bushfires. And then you can start to see and build on the momentum, and then away you go. So I may be reading this question incorrectly, Darren, but I'm just sensing that maybe there's a whole heap that people can be contending with. So sometimes the best place to start is by taking some things off your plate. Okay. And that's a general comment, so no judgment. It's just the clinical advice that I give. All right, guys, I appreciate your patience. You made it. Next week, I'm going to be presenting on a very common condition that may give us all trouble, or someone you know. It's low back pain, especially sciatica or discogenic low back pain. And I'm going to try and present it like I did today with posture and shoulder bursitis pain. So if you enjoyed it, I'd be happy to see you guys next week. Check out our blog, check out our videos. And I hope you guys, I haven't heard the news, but yeah, hopefully lockdown land might lift soon, but fingers crossed. All right, guys, stay well, stay happy, stay healthy. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.